today I have my special guest. Three Roots approach how smart strategy drives real marketing results. And of course, she is the founder and CEO of WR Digital Marketing. None other than Miss Juliana Weiss-Roessler.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
Welcome, Miss Juliana on Abstract Outside. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I know?
Sure. I'm the founder of WR Digital Marketing. We've been in business for over 10 years. The last 5 years, we've really been focused on small and mid-sized businesses and helping them grow, and helping them take a more strategic approach to their marketing.
Help them to grow. That's what we like. Miss Juliana here on Entrepreneurship 101. We celebrate you. We salute you. Definitely we salute you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today, let's talk about being a founder of WR Digital Marketing as well as the CEO. You work with everyone from the dog whisperer to the Round Rock Police Department to the Neuroscience Research Institute. That's incredibly diverse range of clients. What's the common thread to one marketing problem that all them come to you with regardless of industry?
I would say, a lot of people approach marketing as though it's a to-do list. Like they get really stressed out about, I'm not doing enough social media, right? And really, we need to take the time first to figure out what we think is going to work with marketing. So, a lot of businesses in general kind of skip that planning phase. They just start implementing, they start doing things. And it's really important that we take the time to do that planning because we're more likely to succeed in that implement phase, right? And then afterwards, we need to take the time to measure it. And then we can go back to that planning phase again with more information than we had before to try to implement something and get better results, right? So most of the companies we work with come to us because they are just doing a lot of stuff and not seeing a lot of results. So we help them treat marketing as a process instead of just that to-do list.
Miss Juliana, you help business move from reactive marketing to strategic growth. Paint me a picture. What does reactive marketing look like, sound like on Tuesday morning in a small business, and what's emotional toll it takes on the owner?
Okay, yeah. So reactive marketing is when we don't really have a plan in place, we don't really have a schedule in place. And what typically happens with companies like that is business will start to slow down and they start going, oh gosh, I've got to do some marketing. So they start doing some marketing and they're being consistent with it for a period of time. And they get busy again, right? And then they don't have time to do that marketing. And so they stop again and business slows down. And then, so it's just this cycle of kind of feast and famine for the business. So the next step after that is what we like to call planned or scheduled marketing, where you have just a plan that keeps it kind of consistent. And then from there is really, like I said, the strategic marketing, where we're creating a plan, implementing it, measuring it, and we're treating it as an important part of the business and not just treating it as that to do list. And honestly, most businesses are kind of vacillating between all those different stages as they are growing. Ideally, every business would be in that strategic marketing box all the time, right? But the
Mm.
reality is that sometimes life takes over and you kind of keep falling back to just getting stuff done or the on and off kind of thing, and that's totally normal. But you want to just start fighting to get to that strategic place for your business.
Your agency is a woman run, and you specifically focus on helping women and minority owned businesses. Why is that focus necessary? What unique marketing challenges do these business owners face that larger or more traditional agencies often miss or mishandle?
So I would say that, typically business in the United States has focused on, white male entrepreneurship. And a lot of doors
Yes.
are open for white male entrepreneurs that are not necessarily open for people of color, that are not necessarily open for women. It's not even anything intentional. It's just sort of like there are these groups that have existed for periods of time, right? So now we're kind of seeing that women and minorities are coming together to sort of form those systems for themselves. And and approaching it maybe from a little bit of a different angle because of our personal lived experience. So that's kind of, we try to put our focus on those businesses, and also businesses trying to make a difference. So that's actually more about our mission than it is about them facing any specific marketing strategy problems. They often face access problems, is what I would say.
Well said, Miss Juliana, and thank you so much for empowering women all over the world. We salute you for doing that. You develop a framework called Three Roots Marketing Plan. Walk us through what those three roots are and why you choose the metaphor of a tree. What happens when a business tries to grow without the three roots in place?
So the three roots are, and that's kind of something that people often skip, right? The first root before we start marketing at all is we need to have a really clear understanding of our business strategy. So if you are a young entrepreneur at the early stages, you might not be clear on some of these things. For marketing, we need to be really clear on three specific things, which is what we do, who we serve, and then what's our differentiator. So why should someone pick our business over another business? So if we're not clear on those things, then we can't clearly communicate what our business is, right? If we're not clear on what our business does, who we're serving, we're not going to reach them effectively. So the next route is actually brand strategy, and that's literally what that is communicating what our business is. So you need to understand how you can now clearly communicate what your business is to your target audience. So that means the language that you use, the colors that you use, the imagery that you use, the way we are talking to our audience, to have very set standards for that. And that's not because it just looks nice. It's because it helps people to remember us. So if at some point we're using some bright colors and purples and fluorescence and that kind of thing, and then in another, let's say, social media post, we're using some somber and dark colors, that's not going to help people remember those two posts, to connect the dots on those two posts, right? So that's why it's really important that there's that consistency in the way we're expressing what the business is to our target market. And then our third route is marketing strategy. So at that point, we have a clear idea of what our business is. We have a clear idea of how we can communicate it to our target audience. We have those rules set in place. Once we get to that marketing strategy, we're thinking through, okay, how do we reach that target audience? And how do we convince them to take the next step? What channels are we going to be using? What ways are we going to measure results? How are we going to move them from awareness of our business to consideration of our business to conversion, and then to keeping them loyal to our business? So those are the three routes that you really should think through and have in place before you do any marketing activity, no matter how small, because you're going to get a lot better results if you do take the time to lay down those roots. And we do talk about it as roots because that's sort of how your business can grow, right? We want those fruits, the fruits of our labors, to come from all that effort we're putting out. And it does, just like a tree or a plant, take time. You don't just put something else at once and then the tree sprouts the next day, right? Your consistent efforts watering, nurturing that plant as it grows, and then you will find that over time you get those results.
You also wrote a workbook on this framework. For a busy business owner who barely has time to eat lunch and let alone read a workbook, what is the single most valuable exercise in the book that they could do in 15 minutes and see immediate clarity for?
Well, I would recommend that if you're going to check out the workbook, really each activity in there would take you 15 minutes, maybe a little bit longer if you want to take some time on it. So I'd recommend just going page by page by page, because what it does is it takes you through first thinking through business strategy, then brand strategy, and then marketing strategy. So I would say starting it just a little bit at a time, once a week, maybe just picking a worksheet in there to do. They are all pretty quick to do. But I have to say that honestly, if you're an early stage entrepreneur thinking through what you do, who you serve, and what's your differentiator, and getting super clear on that, and you might end up being wrong, but at least starting with a hypothesis on those things and then trying that out and seeing what feedback you get and figuring out if you need to adjust those things. But starting out with that plan can make a big difference on your long term success. If you are a little bit further down the line, I would say thinking through the actual different stages of the marketing funnel. I'm not talking about like an email funnel or anything like that. I'm thinking through awareness, consideration, conversion, and loyalty, and thinking through how each of the marketing activities you are doing fit into those stages and if they are actually functional and working in each of those stages.
Well said, Ms. Juliana. If a company is just starting to grow or feels completely stuck, what is the very first step in your three roots process? Not step three or step five, step one, what they do on day one.
Day one is that what I kept talking about, which is the what is my business, right? Who do we serve,
Mm,
and what's our differentiator? So really diving hard into that. If you feel stuck because you've been in business a while, then I would recommend going at those statements as like, okay, what are our core services right now that are making the most money, right? What are our core services that we're seeing the most demand for? In terms of who we serve, looking at your current clientele and going, what are some similarities I can see? Am I missing out on opportunities because I'm not catering to one specific type of person or type of business? So I would say assessing your business from that stance and then kind of thinking through the next steps of it.
you said you help business move beyond the constant grind of context creation. The phrase is going to hit hard for so many listeners or viewers. What is about content creation that turns into such an exhausting treadmill, and how the three roots get them of it?
Okay, so content creation, I mean, it is a full time job for many people, right? For people who are social media personalities, it is a full time job. So when you look at sort of the to do lists for small businesses, where they're saying you need to be posting on this platform this many times, this platform this many times, you need to be creating videos, you need to be creating blog posts, right? No wonder it feels overwhelming because it literally is some people's full-time job to create all that content, and you're running a business, so you can't do that. So what you really need to do is think through which of those things are actually going to produce business results for you. So I'm going to give you an example of somebody was doing a really great job on their TikTok, and she got over 500,000 views on one of her TikTok videos, and she came to me and said, I got 500,000 views, how do I turn these into clients? She got zero business from that 500,000 views, right? So you really have to make sure that you're not just chasing those audience metrics, that you're not just chasing those vanity metrics, that you're focused on what's going to turn into a sale, right? If she had had a video, posted a video up and got one follower or one view, right? And that one view had turned into a client, that would have been way more valuable than that 500,000 she got. The 500,000 feels good, but it doesn't do anything for your small business. So, yeah, so that's what I would say is just you get a lot of information from the marketing experts online, right? Focusing on each little tiny tactic, but that tactic might not make sense to your business. So don't stress about doing all the things. You don't have to do all the things. You need to do what's going to work for your specific business.
Again, Miss Juliana, well said indeed. What are the biggest mistakes business make when building a marketing strategy? And here the follow up, which is those mistakes do smart, successful people make because it feels counterintuitive to do opposite.
Okay, so a lot I've seen small businesses at the very start spend too much money on just one marketing channel. So I met somebody, just as an example, who had this gorgeous website. I mean, it looked like it could have been a Fortune 500 company, right? It looked gorgeous. But once he built that website, he had no funds left over to try to get people to see that website. He had no funds left over to do any other marketing activities. So it's great to have a super fancy website if you can afford it, but you need to look at your marketing budget overall and go, okay, if I'm going to spend this much money here, how much is left over for all these other things? In an ideal world, you want to have at least 5 marketing channels, awareness channels, active at any time, so that if there's problems with any one of them, you're not going to zero, right? If you are only relying on one marketing channel and that marketing channel suddenly starts to struggle, then your business is going to struggle. If you've got 5 and you lose one, that's only 20% theoretically of your business. So you have time to re get another awareness channel on there for you, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when you're starting to plan out your marketing spend or you're starting to plan out your marketing strategy, to be thinking of, yes, you need to get the basics in place, right? We need a website, we need a brand, we need a logo, but you also need money to try to get yourself up to those 5 awareness channels, whatever they're going to be. And that doesn't mean it has to be ads, right? It doesn't have to be any specific channel. It doesn't have to be social media posts. It could be, doing speaking engagements. It could be joining your local chamber and networking. There's so many ways that we can make people aware of our business. But you just want to think through when you're starting out, how much money can I really afford to spend on this one channel? And is that going to prevent me from opening my business up to other channels?
Miss Juliana, you tell people to forget best practices. That's almost heretical in marketing world. Why are the best practices often a trap, and what should business owners use instead to guide their decisions?
So those best practices that we often see out there are put out by the social networks themselves, right? So Facebook will tell you what time, day, all sorts of things you need to post something or how often you have to post in order to get the best engagement, right? The best views. But again, we just talked about how that engagement and views may be worthless to you in the end. You may end up with $0 at the end of that. And really, those social networks have a vested interest in encouraging us to get on that content treadmill, right? And like produce a ton of content. Because if we stop producing content, they don't exist anymore, right? You'll also find that a lot of social media scheduling tools, they're the ones also sharing that kind of best practices. It makes sense, they have access to the data. But again, if we're constantly putting out all this content, we need those scheduling tools. So a lot of times that marketing advice is really not coming from marketers. It's really coming from the social networks themselves and these social media scheduling tools. And the data and the things they want us to fight for are these views and all these vanity metrics, engagements, and all those lovely things. And if that's what your business is, then you do have to follow those best practices. But if you're trying to, if you're running a hair salon or you're selling legal services, whatever it is, you don't necessarily need to go after those things. So instead, you can kind of go, what's the best practices for my business? What do I know? How did the last person who came in the door find me, right? What are the top 5 ways people are finding me? Looking at those things and figuring out how you can double down on what you know works to bring business in the door versus just getting that engagement and those views and that kind of thing.
Again, well said, Miss Juliana. And you offer expertise across website, social, SEO, and email. How should a mind market business with limited time and budget think about prioritizing among these channels, and what's the framework for that decision, not just the answer?
Okay, so first thing I would say is to look at your existing clients, which we talked about, right? Like, how are they finding you right now? And then research. If I'm targeting somebody who's a senior, right? Like, my target audience is senior citizens, and they're not really on TikTok. I don't need to be on TikTok, right? If I'm targeting the youth, then I do need to be on TikTok, right? So thinking through your target audience, where they are, where they're already consuming media, um, is key to figuring out which channel you should look at. I would say that the most undervalued marketing channel, pretty much across the board, is email. So that's not true for
Mhm.
everyone 100%, but a lot of people get really worried about social media. But a lot of times the conversions and the relationship building comes from email. So I would say that right now, if you have 2 minutes of your time and you're considering maybe what you want to look at, I would look at if you're using that effectively enough. When you post something on social media, the social media algorithms, they actually control who actually sees that content, right? And they're often now forcing us to pay more money to get people to see that because that's how they make money. When you send an email to someone, other than the cost, of course, of developing that email and the email software you have, it's going to end up in the box, the inbox of whoever you send, and they're at least going to see that subject line and your name. Even if they don't open it, that's going to help your business stay in their head, right? And help you deepen that relationship. And it's going to be a heck of a lot cheaper to do that in most cases than on social media. So I would say that a lot of businesses, the first thing we look at for small businesses when we're looking for the low hanging fruit opportunities that they may have overlooked it usually comes from that email piece because it gets overlooked because it's not as fancy or fun as social media is. But it is effective, right? Most of us check our email multiple times a day. Not all of us check our social media every day.
Definitely. And Ms. Juliana, you are an ambassador of two different business organizations. You volunteer with the Girl Scout or what Girl Scout people found in Lions Club, and you co-founded I Work for Peace. There's a lot of service outside your business. How does that community work influence your marketing philosophy with clients?
Well, I'd say first of all, it helps keep me sane. It's my emotional outlet, right? Like I go out there and I do something valuable for the community. And sometimes I'm using my marketing skills to help the organizations, but I really love getting out from behind my computer and getting to just be a part of the community. So we do a lot of marketing locally here in the Austin area in Texas. So because of all of my work in the community, I end up developing relationships and I have a knowledge of the businesses in the area. So that has often let me help my clients because I can go, oh, I know somebody who you would be great to connect with as a referral partner, or I know somebody who has the perfect venue for the speaking engagement you might want to do. So it's really just, and also I have a better understanding of the community, of the people that are here and the needs that we have and what we're stressing about, what we're excited about. So part of it's just for fun and helps me, like I said, stay sane. But part of it is having a better knowledge of our local area here.
And Miss Juliana, to wrap up our discussion for today, you photograph insects in your free time. I have to ask, what's the micro photography of bags taught you about marketing, strategy, or running business?
I don't know, but I love it. Yeah, during the pandemic, I took a picture of a caterpillar and I was curious what butterfly it grew up into. And then I just started taking pictures of bugs, just curious about them. And as I got
Mhm.
into Girl Scouts, one of the girls noticed me taking photos and she saw a great spider and she called me over and started calling me the bug mom. So bug mom, come over and check out this bug. And so now it's just kind of part of my identity, right? Taking photos of these bugs. It's a lot of fun and a way to get out from behind my computer too.
Definitely be curious in everything we do, people.
Yes.
Be curious. So, Miss Juliana, can you please invite our listeners to support your business, your projects, or anything you want to promote on Entrepreneurship 101?
Sure, sure. Feel free to check us out on wrdigitalmarketing.com. You can sign up for a free consultation with me, 15 minutes. I'll talk you through any marketing situation you have, and we can see if we're a fit to support you long term. But even if you just want to pick my brain for 15 minutes, you're welcome to do that. I love just chatting with small business owners. Yeah, and check out my workbook too if you'd like.
Certainly. And I have one more question, Miss Juliana, before I will let you go. If a listeners or viewers as a business owner who knows they need a better marketing strategy that feels overwhelmed, has been burned by agency before, or it doesn't think they can afford real help, what would you say to the right now? Or what can you say to them right now? And what is the one simple, non scary step they can take this week to start moving from reactive to strategic?
I would say, take some time, give yourself maybe half a day to dive in to your marketing strategy. It's an important part of your business that shouldn't be overlooked. So I would say dedicating some time to it. And I think it's wise to weigh whether or not you can afford it or not, some outside help, right? Um, but I would also look at what skills you lack and how you can fill those voids. So, if, for instance, you're really strong on writing, maybe right now in your business you need some help with ad management, right? Maybe you don't need a full service agency like mine. Maybe you need somebody that's just going to help you with the pieces, but you still need to be guiding the strategy as the business owner. So, it is tough once you get to the point where you can afford that kind of full service help. I think it's kind of a weight lifted, but in the beginning it's tough, but you can do it. And you just got to keep fighting for it.
You can do it, definitely. And Ms. Juliana, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Likewise, Martica people, see you soon.